see the website?
I did look at your website, quickly, so. I know that you're trying to do work on reparations, is that correct?
Restitution.
Restitution, okay.
So basically, the court case is to contest the oath of office, because for me to take the oath of office, I would have to commit to protecting the Constitution, but the Constitution is kind of missing things for the majority party. So the court case is to contest the oath. Then it's contesting the election, because the amount of signatures that's needed for an independent party is not streamlined for all parties. It's like a drastic amount. So Democrat might need 23,000, Republican 52,000, then independent is like 140 something thousand. So that doesn't make sense. And then the third part of it is restitution for the kidnapping during the transatlantic slave trade, right? And basically what I brought up in the court case is that we being African Americans, indigenous, aboriginals, fought in the same wars American fought in. So we have that same right to create protective laws, just like the Constitution, Bill of Rights and all that, which will balance out the injustices of the legal system.
Okay, so that's a lot, right?
Yeah, that's why I was like,
so-
you gotta kind of read the website so you
Yeah.
can grab
Okay.
what makes sense to you.
So just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page. So as you know, Congress is a very slow process with a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of things that have been in place for hundreds of years, and to make any type of change takes sometimes years, decades, to do these types of things. So just wanted to say this idea, well, I'm sure it would help, Black Americans. I'm not sure if it's something that is super tangible for Senator Warnock to take on at this time. But I would love to work together
But
in other ways.
it's
that
not
we-
really a change though. It's more like that inclusion, right? They don't have to change what they got going on already. It's just including majority laws that is, what's the word? Basically, if you tell me, okay, we can only play tennis from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., I will come and say, we agree to play tennis from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. But it's just recognizing that there's two sides of the law. Does that make sense? It's like introducing that the majority party is also in equivalent to the laws that's there now.
I'm not completely following.
Can I draw on your pad?
Do you all have any literature that you could leave with us? Maybe we can share with the senator?
That's why I gave the website. Everything is there.
Okay.
Everything is there. The whole court case, everything is there.
Okay. Well, maybe you could send us the court case?
I did.
Okay.
So y'all did not look at this. I spent a lot of money to come here.
Okay. Well, we can take a brief look and see, but I wanna make sure that we are, I think that your idea is something that is innovative, but I'm not sure about implementation. Exactly.
Right, so I submitted to you guys the bill that you could just, edit it the way that it's supposed to be presented,
Mhm.
and it's there already.
Okay. And
Cause I
also,
know you have to codify it and all that.
yeah,
And you already have bills that have been introduced already. So the co-sponsors and the sponsors of those bills
Mhm.
will be in agreement with that bill. So it's.
well, it
already-
doesn't necessarily work that way. So essentially, this is what would happen. We would have to, if Senator Warnock, he would first have to agree. So we would have to have a really clear understanding of this idea, right? And then Senator Warnock would have to say, this is something that I want to champion. He would have to make the decision. Austin and I cannot make that decision,
I got you.
right?
So
And then we would have to reach out to all the Senate offices and to find a House companion that also would do it. Just because they're on legislation that might be similar, doesn't mean that they'll automatically want to get on this piece of legislation. Does that make sense?
So why did they submit it if they didn't wanna do it?
Well, I'm saying, just because if it's not the exact same legislation, you see what I'm saying? I saw that you had Senator Booker was on a piece of legislation that was talking about reparations.
Uh-huh.
That's not exactly this piece of legislation, so they have to sign on an agreement again. It wouldn't just directly translate. Because every piece of legislation, so like there's S 432. I'm just making this up. This would be like
Mhm.
S 434. So that would be a different piece of legislation where we would need co-sponsors. Is that, so it wouldn't just directly, just because Senator Booker supports one piece of legislation doesn't mean he would support this piece of legislation.
But
You see
they
what I'm
all
saying?
go together.
But even if they go together, you would still have to, I'm just telling you how Congress works, they'd still have to sign one again and agree to it.
Okay, so HR 40 and S 40 is the same thing.
No, so they might be, the text could be similar, so you have to, also this is how it works, so you have to submit this legislation in the House. Say, a member decides to leave something in the House, I'm not gonna say a member because I don't wanna commit them to that, right? And Senator Warnock would lead something in the Senate. They would both have to lead in both chambers. It would then have to go through the committee of jurisdiction, which in this case would probably be the Judiciary Committee, go through the Judiciary Committee and be marked up. The markup process can take often, sometimes years for them to even bring a bill up to be marked up. Once it's marked up in both committees, that's when it will go to the House floor and it has to pass in the House. Then it comes to the Senate and will do pass here, and then it goes to the President's desk. So it's a very long and egregious process. And just because you support a senator or a member of the House supports one piece of legislation that's similar, doesn't mean that they automatically support another piece of legislation. So unfortunately, that's just how Congress is. So even for something like you think is a technical fix, like, right, if you want to be able to, this is a small, so for the assault weapons ban, right? Currently, the assault weapons ban is there, and I was in another office and we were trying to make sure that semi-assault, there was a certain type of assault weapon that was not included in the overall package or legislation. So we had to create another piece of legislation. Even though they go together, you still would have to do it separate.
Okay, so HR 40 and S 40 is the same thing, right? In terms of the research for reparations, her name escapes me, but the lady who did HR 40 that she passed away, right?
Oh, are you talking about Sheila Jack? I thought I saw
Yes,
it.
her. Okay, so she already submitted the analysis for that bill to CBO, which they allocated $12 million for it, right? So I guess because she passed away, now S 40 came out. But
No, it
it's
doesn't
just
work.
complete. Okay, but the language in it is identical to HR 40.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that court case and that book is the research that's requesting. It's the same thing.
But
It's finished.
even still, you would need another vehicle.
Cool. So I submitted that bill for that vehicle.
But even still, you submitting language doesn't just mean like, oh, we're gonna take this language.
I understand. That's
Okay.
where you guys come in to codify it for that language.
Well, not codify, we would work with Ledge Council. So
Okay.
we have legislative council and they would do, to codify means that that's when it would be put into law, which means that both chambers are vote.
Well, that's where my vision is. So
Okay.
from that point to that point, that's where you guys come in.
I mean, I see that, but again, like I was saying originally, we would have to go through this whole approval process and see if Senator Warnock would want to do this
I
idea.
thought that was done already.
It has not been done. So Senator
So
Warnock
y'all
is
didn't
not,
even talk about
he
it.
is not committed to doing this. This is my first time having this meeting with you. I think you met with Austin another time. Unfortunately, I was in the state and wasn't able to attend the meeting. So this is our first time. Austin works on my team, but this is the first time you and I are having a conversation, right? So just, and I want to level set again. Just because you have an idea, could be a great idea, doesn't mean that Senator Warnock is automatically going to commit to it.
I didn't ask for that. I
Okay.
didn't know I need to go through one of the senators. It don't have to be him.
Okay.
But seeing that everything he's talking about in the media correlates to this, then it just made sense to introduce it to him,
Okay.
right? But it's kind of unfair if you don't even look at the research to even introduce it to him. That's a lot of work. This is 6 years, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And I get you guys got stuff to do, but I'm following the steps. Like, the smallest piece of it is to actually look at it. And then you would be like, oh, okay, because the work is done. I'm supposed to get a default judgment today on that court case.
Okay. Okay. Well, what we can do is,
So what I'm saying is more than an idea at this point.
okay, but even still, even if it has to go through our law, wants, and he has to commit to doing it, even if it is more than an
Right,
idea.
but he didn't even get a little snippet of it, so I don't understand how we're gonna move from here.
And I also wanna make sure that, you know, it's not anything personal. There's a lot of things that happen in Congress, right? And even to get a piece of legislation, for him to say, I wanna put this on, this is something I believe, can take 6 months, right?
Okay,
And that's just an internal process.
I registered as a lobbyist, so what I need to do with that, then,
What do you mean?
our company is a lobbyist now,
Okay.
so can we use that to speed up the process?
That will speed up the process. You can meet with members of Congress and you can meet with with staffs, but that doesn't necessarily speed up the process.
So really, it just gotta get somebody who cares about the work that's done to actually push it.
But not even someone who cares, right? You have to go through all of the channels. Even, I mean, and that's just how Congress works, right?
Right, but I
So
am,
we-
but you're not even reading it.
We introduced a piece of legislation in July, right?
Okay,
It was introduced, it has not been marked up. At this point, there's no and that's a whole other thing, there would have to be a vehicle for it to be included in. Because oftentimes, more often than not, a piece of legislation isn't just gonna go to the floor and pass, especially in the Senate. So usually legislation is included in a bigger package or vehicle, like we have the National Defense Authorization Act, which is where legislation sometimes is kind of compacted. We also have appropriations bills where oftentimes things, supplementals are put in there. So you'd also have to find a vehicle to drive a piece of
so
legislation. It's
the
not
rest, I
just,
have the Restitution Act that has all that in it.
no, it wouldn't work that way. So it wouldn't, you'd have to find a piece of existing legislation that you could attach this bill to, in addition to getting co-sponsors, in addition to drafting it. So it's, I know that you're frustrated, but I'm just saying
No, I'm
it's a
not
really long
frustrated, I'm
process.
trying to figure out how to get this no into a yes. So you're basically saying I gotta find a law already established that can
Well,
fall.
a funding package or a bill that it could go into.
So the fact that HR 40, has that allocation doesn't qualify?
Just because you have an allocation or a number, a funding amount, doesn't mean that it's going to pass. So, for instance, the bipartisan infrastructure law has several different bills that are included in there. And you just put them all together and it passes an entire package, right?
Mhm.
So you have to wait for the time to come up. So that's what I was trying to tell you about a bill that we just introduced, the Pathways to Prosperity Act. It's a bill that is going to give grants for community colleges and industry partners, right?
So that has
And that
allocated
would-
funds,
No, there's no funding in that.
but
We
you're
wanted it to
trying to
be-
get it.
we're trying to move it, but we have to move it in another vehicle, which is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. They have to bring that bill to be marked up in the Health Committee, which is the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee.
Mhm.
So the committee has to bring it up. The committee has yet to bring it up because there's a lot of politics around it. And if they bring it up, then you have conversations and everyone on the committee has to agree for it to be put in there. So just because it's even there doesn't mean it's going to be pulled up. You see what I'm saying? It's not just like you have an idea and it makes it to the floor immediately. There's a lot of steps and it takes quite a long time for that to happen. So it's not even like,
So
even
it
if,
needs more media.
no, even the media doesn't necessarily move. That's not how legislation works. So even if there's media
I've
attention.
seen, okay, prime example, Supreme Court, a few of the judges, they were going through some stuff about the gifts that they were receiving, right? And they was like, they wasn't supposed to get that many gifts. Next thing you know, it's a whole new law that they can accept gifts now. So they picking and choosing which ones they passing through faster.
And I don't even think with that, I don't think there was a piece of legislation about the gifts.
So they just went and did it.
So
No, there was that,
there's been oversight into that. So we've done oversight to see like how that works. I think there was a current rule, because there was a certain amount of gifts that you can get and they were able to.
Right.
So it wasn't like it was a piece of legislation that came before Congress is what I'm trying to say. You see what I'm saying?
so because there was a gap, they were able to close it faster.
No. It's just like how they interpreted the language. It wasn't necessarily a piece of legislation. So there wasn't legislation that came, oh, we're going to make it so you can increase the amount of allocation you can get for a gift. That didn't come to the House floor or the Senate floor. For whatever reason, they were able to, I mean, that's not right. They were able to interpret it in a way to do that. But there wasn't a piece of legislation that got marked up in both chambers that then came to the floor.
So what they just changed, is it valid or not valid?
Well, I'm gonna look more into what you're saying specifically, but I'm telling you that there was nothing that came to the House floor or Senate floor that did that.
But I need to go through the House and Senate floor in order for these acts to get into the US code.
Yes. It has to pass through those chambers, and it has to also be marked up in the committee. Both committees, both in the Senate Health Committee and the Education and Workforce Committees. I mean, not in the Judiciary Committee.
For them to pass it and educate the public on it.
No.
So why?
This is how it works for legislation. A member in the House and a member in the Senate decide if they want to do a bill. Oftentimes, both offices are communicating with each other. Then, when committee is marking up bills, oftentimes we don't know when that's going to be, committee will decide. Then the Judiciary Committee, in this case, will look at the bill, and everyone has to vote on it. It has to be voted out of the committee. So if you can't get the votes in committee, it also will never get you before. So you have to get it to pass out of both chambers committees, and then it goes to the House floor, it goes to the Senate floor, it has to pass out a vote, and it goes to the
Alright,
President.
so they have a tribunal meeting coming up on the 24th. Could we tack on to that?
That doesn't have any, no. No. You still have to pass, for a piece of legislation to move, has to go through the process of Congress. And that, unfortunately, that's what's sometimes unfortunate, and people get frustrated about Congress because they move slowly, because you have to go through so many processes for something to become law. So if you're trying to change what's already in the Constitution.
That's what I'm saying, I'm not trying to change it, I'm adding it.
Yeah, but even if you're making
It's more like an acknowledgement.
So even for an acknowledgement or an amendment, it still needs to go through the formal process. That's just how our government operates. Yeah.
So, in your opinion, because I know you gotta go, in your opinion, what would you say is the next step then?
We need to figure out who would want to lead this work, right, in the House and the Senate.
So, you don't think Warnock's the person?
I don't know. I need to take a deeper dive. I need to talk to my boss about it. I can't say affirmatively if this is something we want to do or not do. My job is to listen to you, take it all in. I'll draft some notes in the memorandum for him and give it to him, but ultimately it's his decision.
So how you feel about it? 'Cause
I mean,
it's gonna be no language.
I need to still take a look and really try to understand exactly what you're trying to do.
Okay, so what I'm doing, right? So, okay, let me see if I could. So I'm running for president. And as running for president, you're supposed to take on the concerns of the people that you represent.
Mm-hmm.
In the African American community, we already know what that is, right? But for some reason, it can't be done, right? So when I did the research, this is I just picked this up though, but this is the court case that by 5 o'clock today, I should have my second default judgment, because they only gave me one, and then they gave me the other two summons. So by 5 o'clock, I should be having my default judgment. All the acts that I had created, which is the Restitution Act, you know, the act to protect the community against blatant police brutality, all those disparities, the injustices is because there's no laws that represent that community.
And you're from Georgia, is that correct?
I live there, but I'm originally from New York.
Okay, so you live in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So have you tried to do anything on this in the state legislature? Have you met with any folks in the state legislature?
There's nobody in that building. Or I get a bunch of emails and
Well, no,
nobody
like
answers.
maybe some of the CDC members in the state house, like maybe starting here.
I've started everywhere everyone has told me to start. I've sent emails to tons of people and nobody responds.
Yeah, because maybe you could start in the state that would probably be, I mean, that's still gonna be,
Yeah,
Pretty
I
difficult.
Yeah, it is. I already tried Hank Johnson for a year and a half.
well, he's in Congress.
Okay.
So, I'm saying someone in the state, Georgia state politics. So if you start with the state.
But you guys are connected to the House and Senate, right?
Yes, but I'm saying if you do this in the Georgia State Assembly, try to do it in Georgia as opposed to here.
Why?
I'm just saying that, quite frankly, I don't wanna waste your time, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know that this is feasible. I don't know politically if it's feasible, I just don't know, I don't know if it's feasible. I truly don't, and I don't think that it's going to successfully make it to the floor.
Why?
Because of where we are as a people, where we are as a country, I don't think that they're going to change the code in that way. I don't think.
But change it in what way?
Well, what you're saying, you're trying to add, it's gonna take a long process, and I think you want something done now, I don't think that that's gonna
I don't think you understand what I'm doing. That's why you're saying no.
happen. Okay, well, tell me what you're saying. I mean,
I've
if you
been
wanna-
saying it. I've been saying it. I'm just saying that America already knows there's a missing piece. That's why you have a majority and you have a minority. Everything that you guys are working on now is primarily for the minority. So we're missing the majority
What do
side.
you mean for the minority?
The minority party.
Well, actually, in the Senate, we're in the majority, so that's why.
No, that's what y'all, it has to still be filled. But if you go to the beginning of when this all started,
Mhm.
the primary focus is for the minority party. Now, in time, because the majority side did not do their part, they had to fill it in. That's why you're acting. You'll just have to do the research from the beginning. That's why I tell people just read the work that's done, because it's kind of hard to get.
Yeah.
Because we're so
Well,
used
that's
to
what,
where
that's
we
what
are
I'm
now.
saying, that's what I'm saying too. It's just like, I appreciate all the work and research you've done, and I just don't know if this is the time and place to take
It
this.
has to, because you guys are going into a huge, economic disaster come next year. And this is gonna balance it out.
Yeah. I mean, and that could very much be true, but I'm just telling you, like, I don't think that there's going to be success at this point in time. Doesn't mean that it's never gonna be successful today, I don't think so. I also wanna set expectations that we are going into elections, so this is a huge change, you might say it's like small and technical, but it's really a huge change. And I don't necessarily think that it's going to be successful in this moment. And who knows, because we do need people like yourself that are challenging thoughts and things like that, because that's how we make progress. So I'm grateful for this conversation, but I'm saying that today, I don't think that it's going to be successful in both chambers and be signed on the president's desk. Because we're actually getting ready to enter a lame duck period, which is because we're going to an election, so really, we're just trying to do everything we can from the government to move into January before the new Congress begins. So it being taken up this year is 100% unlikely. Before December 2024, 100% unlikely. And that is me being 100% just transparent with you.
There's a change before December.
There will not be a change.
I'm just saying, if it's a possibility.
It is not a possibility. I'm telling you, it is not a possibility for this change to happen before December. Is it, Austin? No.
Why?
That's not how Congress works. You can't, what we're doing, I'm telling you what we're doing for the rest of the year. We're gonna hopefully pass a continuing resolution, because September 30th, 2024 is when FY 24 runs out and the fiscal year ends, right?
Mhm.
That's what we're trying to do. There's also the National Defense Authorization Act, which is up for renewal. We're gonna try to pass that bill. Those are likely.
Okay, so y'all focused on the fiscal budget and
Those
that.
are likely the
Gotcha.
only things that will happen. So, new legislation, passing in both branches and doing something which is very innovative and different is very unlikely. I'm not even unlikely, will not happen.
So when is the next time they both are here?
They're all both here right now.
They are,
Mm-hmm.
like today?
Yeah.
And until what time?
I mean, I don't know what time votes in the House, but their Congress is meeting today.
And anybody can go in?
I mean, you can get a gallery pass and sit in the gallery, but you won't be recognized or anything like that.
No, I'm just asking if we can go in.
Yeah, you can go and sit in the gallery and listen.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do we get that from downstairs?
Yeah, we can take you up to our front office and they'd be more than happy
Yeah.
to go. Let's
Okay.
go.
But you can sit in the gallery, like I said, won't be recognized, won't be able to show your ideas. Great.
Okay.
Okay.